Speaker recognizes Representative Prestin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Permission to speak to the entire package.
Without objection, so ordered.
I'm a former county commissioner, and I also served 9 years on the Alger Delta Electrical Cooperative Board of Directors. It's a distribution co-op serving 10,000 members in the Upper Peninsula. I know how energy distribution works. Local leaders are best equipped to understand their community's needs. This legislation strips all local control away and hands it over to the Michigan Public Service Commission. The MPSC is made up of 3 governor appointees. They are, by definition, unelected bureaucrats with zero mandate to the voters. Centralizing power like this sets a dangerous precedent. How can we be sure the geographical and geological diversity of our state will be taken into consideration? What has more impact? Sending a letter to a commission you just learned existed, or talking to the township clerk you've known for years? Who will the public see as truly best suited to be making decisions for our communities? I'm confident that if we pass this package, the divide between members of the public and the solar and wind developers will only grow. This legislation does not build trust. It utterly destroys it. There's no requirement for the MPSC to seriously weigh the input of local officials. Amendments have been adopted, but these bills still state the Commission shall grant the application and thus certify and approve the project. A one-size-fits-all approach will not work. How can we be sure they won't be a rubber stamping committee for the priorities of an activist chairman who sees our communities as speed bumps on the road to progress? The energy package as a whole could more than double the cost of energy bills for our friends and neighbors. Inflation has already hobbled our communities, and instead of working to improve the affordability and reliability of our grid, this plan kneecaps families by adding additional expenses they simply cannot afford. Wind and solar are weather dependent. Living in the UP, our winters are cloudy and last far longer than south of the bridge. For us, renewables are intermittently supplemental at best. They do play a part, but they're far from reliable. Some days, there's just not a lot of wind. In roughly the last year, Michigan has had 3 maximum generation events where energy demand outpaced supply. It means our grid was about to fail. These events used to be rare, but they're growing in frequency. Each of these events was caused by the failure of renewable energy, usually wind. These bills will only make us more reliant on energy sources already on loose fitting. Right now, energy sources like coal and natural gas make up approximately 60 to 70% of our electrical supply, even right now. These bills eliminate our base load and replaces it with unreliable and weather-dependent sources. In no uncertain terms, these bills condemn cities like Marquette and major employers in my area to a perilous energy future. There are serious consequences to our actions here. Do we want people to go without heat, without essential medical devices to keep them alive? Do we expect our citizens to suffer through blackouts? Not everyone can afford a standby generator. The poor and seniors on fixed incomes are left out in the cold, while everybody else is allowed to stay warm. Expanding unreliable forms of energy means that people across our state could die when we have extreme weather or extenuating circumstances. Instead, we must make best use of our best available technologies. We must ensure energy is affordable for every resident. We must ensure our energy grid is reliable. Wind and solar can have a role to play, but not without natural gas, not without a base load that we already rely on. This package will cripple natural gas power plants with requirements for astronomically expensive carbon capture technology. Forcing this change to unreliable forms of energy production on an unattainable timeline will put most vulnerable residents at unacceptable risk. I urge all of my colleagues to vote no on this dangerous package.